Hello, my name is Gail Seiler, and I'm with Betrayal Project USA. We are a victim led organization dedicated to exposing institutional betrayal, honoring those who've been lost, and pursuing justice for crimes committed under the guise of public health, namely COVID-19. You can learn more about our work, view victim stories, get involved by visiting our website at betrayalprojectusa.org. That's betrayalprojectusa.org. We also You can also follow us on Rumble, BitChute, X, formerly known as Twitter, by either searching for Betrayal Project USA or better yet, just going to our website and clicking on our social media, our Substack, our Rumble, our Twitter. We hold a Twitter Spaces every Saturday at 1 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Eastern. Today, I have the privilege of talking to Peggy Springer, whose husband, John, was killed in an Oklahoma hospital. And she is going to tell us about what happened in both hospitals, but what mainly happened in the hospital in Oklahoma. Peggy, let's start though with we've known each other a long time, so so let's start with talking a bit about who John was.
John was a gift. He was a man that had been raised with values and morals and respect, and taught that hard work pays off and that people matter, and very much a God-loving man. John had faith like no other, and very, very personable. Everybody was his friend. He just had a way about him that he was very easy to talk to, and he was very, very easy to fall in love with and very easy to love. He took his marriage very seriously. He took being a father very seriously. He was a fun parent, not the disciplinary, but that was fine. You know, he was the oldest of four, so he was the oldest child, and he was my best friend. He was my strength. He was my rock. He was my world, and he was just my person. And I was very blessed to have had him for 31 years. I wanted him for 31 more, but it didn't happen. So we met each other when we were in our 20s. I was coming out of a really, really abusive relationship, marriage, and was not probably in the best state. Even after 2 years of being divorced, I was still struggling, and he healed me, and he gave me back my smile, and he gave me back my, he was my world, and wasn't perfect by any means. He still could annoy me like no other. I annoyed him. Our marriage had a lot of challenges, as you know. I had 3 kids from a previous relationship, and so coming in as a stepdad, he did an amazing job, but it comes with challenges. It seemed like sometimes the world was against us, and so just a lot of challenges throughout our 31 years of marriage. And one of the things that our kids will share with us is that they always said, "We admire you guys because through everything you've been through, you're still together. And even if you had a crappy day, at the end of the day, you two were still standing together, still loving each other through the crap. And we want our relationships to be like that. Like no matter what we're going through, at the end of the day, when the smoke settles, we want to be standing next to our person and loving them. And so
And you
he
had three.
showed. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say you had three children going into the marriage, but then you also had four more. So the kids are like, yeah.
Had four together. Yeah, big family, big family. We lost one in a miscarriage back in 2000, and got through that. Just a lot. But John, um, he was a good teacher. Like, he showed our kiddos how a husband should treat a wife, how a father should treat his children, how a man should go out and work hard. And so the work ethic, the family values, the more, um, and God, like, he wanted our kids to know who God was. And so we did go, we were church going people. So, we did a lot of things with our church for a while, kind of slowed down, um, and stuff. But, you know, one of our funny stories, we were taking our church would do little fun things for couples, and they decided to do like 6 weeks of some kind of marriage, like building your marriage stronger or whatever. I can't exactly remember the lesson for that 6 weeks, but anyway, and the minister's wife came up to me one time, for anybody that knows me will get this. She's like, Peggy, I think I know what can make your marriage better. So in my head, I'm thinking, well, I didn't know my marriage was not okay. Like, I didn't know, like, it was struggling, but okay, and I'm just like, okay, well, what? And she's like, well, I feel like that you just need to be more submissive to John. And I'm like, oh, yeah, okay. She goes, you need to let him, like, take the lead. You need to let him be the leader. You need to let him, she's not doing it in a mean way, whatever.
Yeah,
And
right.
yeah. So anyway, I shared that with him later that evening. I'm like, hey, so she came up to me and she's said that she feels like she knows what could help our marriage be better. And he's like, well, is our marriage in trouble? I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, apparently someone thinks it is. So, so her advice is I need to be more submissive. And he he looked at me and he started laughing really, really hard. And he goes, let me tell you something. He goes, you are my fiery little hot-headed lady. And he goes, I seriously would not want you any other way. Um, I didn't marry you because I wanted necessarily submissive.
Yeah,
He goes, now, would it help if you would agree once in a while? Absolutely.
sure.
He goes, but you know what? I seriously would not change you for anything in the world. And that's just how we were. We very much had, sorry, I'm moving around. My phone was getting ready to die, so I needed to change positions. We very
Okay.
much had a lot in common. Like, it was almost kind of eerie, how much we had in common, as far as like food, the way what the foods we liked, the decor, we very much thought alike. And
Yeah,
he was just he was just a really, really good man.
and he was very informed about like the things that were going
He was,
on.
yes, ma'am. Let me tell you, he, even before all of this nonsense with COVID hit, like, even back in our younger days of being married and all through, like, he very much was in tune with what was going on in our world. And he would listen to speakers, and he would email, pardon me, our legislators. He would call them. He very much was, on top of the politics, and he very much paid attention to things. And when things kind of started trickling down, I would say probably in 2019, he really, really started paying attention. I mean, like
Yeah.
obsessive paying attention to the point where I didn't want to ride in a car with him because that's what you were going to listen to and get out. And, and I would tell him, I'm like, John, get bored. Can we like listen to the radio station, something besides this? And he's like, no. He goes, listen to me. We have to know exactly what's going on in our world because
Yeah.
we have to fight for our freedom. We have to fight for our kids' freedom and we have to fight for our grandbabies' freedom. And he just was like, and he would talk about things and I would just look at him and be like, John, that is so crazy sounding. He goes, but that's what they want you to think. He goes, I want you to think it's crazy sounding. So you'll think it's crazy and you won't pay attention to it.
And
And
you won't
that's
be prepared.
that you're not prepared. And he goes, I'm telling you, we have to be prepared. And the very thing that John knew was going on is the very thing that killed him. Um, and what's really been, I don't want to say weird. I don't think that that's the right word. I'm not even sure what the word is. The one thing that I've really, really noticed since John's been gone is that everything that John shared and talked about, I am seeing unravel in front of us.
Yeah.
I am
Yeah.
unravel. It's just very, very scary to me.
So then at some point, that like many people, including myself, the COVID hits, the COVID shot rolls out very quickly, and many of us didn't take it, rightfully so, and don't regret it. So
Right.
John, and then Biden declared the winter of the what is it, the pandemic of the unvaccinated, the winter, the dark winter, the pandemic of the, and we both, but like you and John got caught up in that mess, and John got sick.
Yeah.
Did you both get sick, or was it just John?
Oh, oh no. John actually was not sick. Um, he showed no signs or symptoms of COVID. I got extremely, extremely badly sick. I had got up to go. He had gotten up and went to work that morning, and I had gotten up later because he left about 3 hours before it was time for me to even wake up. And so I had woke up to get ready, and I could not function. I absolutely could not walk. I could not. I couldn't do anything. It was horrible. I managed to get myself back to the bed, and I remember texting him and saying, "I'm not going to work today. I don't feel good." And I texted work, told them I was not coming in, and that's all I remember, other than when he got home that evening. He came in and checked on me, and it was pretty bad. I'm not going to go into the details of what he walked into because it was pretty bad. But he got me all taken care of. He got me settled back down, and he told I remember him telling our youngest daughter, because she was still at home then, he goes, Mama's sick. I'm going to stay home. I got some vacation days. I'm going to stay home and take care of her. Um, and she's like, okay, is she okay? And he goes, yeah. He goes, she's going to be okay. And that was November 1st. On November 7th, I remember looking at him. He had he had put me on the couch, and he was sitting in his recliner, and I just remember looking at him, and this was a Sunday, and I said, I don't I don't think I'm going to make it. I think that we need to go to the hospital. And I could tell that it scared him when I said that because that's truly how I felt. Like I really felt like I was dying. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't pick a glass up. I couldn't hold my head up. I couldn't do nothing. I had like it was like my muscles were just
Yeah.
slime. Just yeah. And so he loaded me up and we went to the hospital and we both went in and he told them he's like, my wife is sick and they're like, well, we're going to take you both back because and that was the first thing out of their first question they asked was out in the waiting room was, had we been vaccinated for COVID? And John's like, no, and we're not getting vaccinated. And then they took us, they separated us in a room, they put me in a room. They came in, they got me started on IV. They were trying to ask questions. I was so delirious. I don't
Yeah.
even know if I answered their questions right. I was not in there to answer for me. I remember that I did ask them, like, where is he? Like, and they're like, oh, he's in another room. Well, they did, of course, the COVID test, and, of course, we came back positive. And then they took blood. They did CT scans on both of us. They did chest x-rays on both of us. They gave us each an antibiotic, even though he was not sick. They're like, well, we're going to give you this antibiotic. We're going to send you home. We want you to come back tomorrow. We're going to do the antibodies treatment on you, and that'll help you feel better.
Monoclonal.
And they
Yep.
offered it to him as well, even though he was not showing any, like he had no signs, nothing. But he had tested positive for COVID, so they offered it to him. And so we went home. We went back Monday, and I had to be like pushed in a wheelchair, and he pushed me into the hospital. They put us in the same room, and I'm like still struggling. Like I am so struggling. They had to like they put us in like these recliner type chairs, and I kept
Mm-hmm.
like I couldn't even sit. Like I kept sliding, and so they got me propped up, and then I'm like, can you put a fan on me? Like I don't feel like I'm getting enough air. And they did that, and he's sitting in the one next to me, and he's having a conversation with this nurse, and she like is got the oxygen thingy majiggy on our fingers and stuff, whatever. And they look at him and they're like, oh, Mr. Springer, we're sorry we can't give you this treatment because your oxygen levels are really low. Even though he was having a full head conversation and was not complaining of being short of breath, nothing. And they took him out, and I said, well, can he come back? Like and get that if they get his oxygen up? And they're like, oh no, he's already passed the window of opportunity to get this treatment. Yeah, I was the one sitting there that could not breathe, that was struggling to get air. I felt like but they gave it to me. They gave me the treatment, and then they take me out, stick me in our vehicle. He's still in the ER. They keep sending a nurse out. I keep asking questions, and she's like, well, I think they're going to send him home with some oxygen. I'm like, is it that bad? Like, because he was fine. Like he was fine. She's like, well, it's, and I'm like, but I never saw numbers. Like I never saw proof that his oxygen was low. And how does somebody that's sitting there talking, that's not gasping for air, like not saying anything,
Right.
all of a sudden they don't have any oxygen? And so probably 2 or 3 hours later, they finally get him hooked up with an oxygen thingy majiggy to take home. And we head home, and he's sitting in the recliner. And I don't know if something was given to, I don't know. Like that's just the bad thing, is you don't know like what happened in that ER, because he was fine he was fine all the next day. In fact, the very next day he was like wearing that oxygen because I told him he had to. But our youngest daughter broke down on the side of the road coming home from school, and he went and rescued her off the side of the road. He's fine. He came back, he's like, I feel fine. I don't know why I have to wear this oxygen. And I'm like, well, you better just do what they say. Just do it. They say. I actually wanted the oxygen for myself, but I didn't want to take what was, they're telling him he needed it. And
Right.
so, but then on Wednesday evening, he that's when he started saying, oh, I don't feel right. And he's like, I just, I feel like I need more oxygen, and the thing up, the oxygen thing up. And finally I got scared. Like I was very, very scared. And I said, well, maybe you should go to the hospital and have them like check you out. And this was a hospital that we had doctored at for 30 some years. We had our two youngest kids there. Our doctor was there. And we loved our doctor. We trusted our doctor. He was a godly man. Like, that was one of the reasons why we liked going to him. And
Hmm.
so our youngest daughter went with him to the hospital. And that was like 8, 9 o'clock at night. They called me. Well, she called me and she's like, Mom, they made me stay out in the parking lot. They won't let me come in. And so I called and I'm like, look, she's 16 years old. Like, are you kidding me? And the nurse was like, well, I'm trying to get her in. Like, I'm trying to tell them, let's mask her up. Let's put her in the room with her dad. She goes, I'm trying. And I'm like, well, I appreciate that. Thank you. Finally, about 11 o'clock that night, they called back and they're like, well, we're sending your daughter home, but we're going to keep him. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? They're like, well, he just needs he just needs some extra oxygen. And he was texting me too. He's like, this is ridiculous. I want to, I don't want to be here. And I'm like, well, they're going to take care of you. Like, you'll probably be home tomorrow. It'll be okay, you know? And, anyway, 3 o'clock in the morning, they called me and the ER doctor's like, hey, we're going to be later today. Like, we're going to be sending him to Oklahoma. And I'm like, no, you're not. I said, he's not going anywhere. And he actually started texting me too. And he's like, they want to send me to Oklahoma. I told them no. I told them I'm not going. I told them I'm staying in my hospital. They can either, I can come home or they can keep me here, but they're not sending me out. And like, so I was telling this doctor, like, no, it's not what we want. We should have the choice of,
Yeah.
this is what we want. We want him to stay there. And this doctor's like, well, ma'am, if you don't let us send him, then you want him to die.
So,
And
so they said that about the transfer. And so, did
yeah,
you ultimately agree to have him transferred, or did they just do it
no,
anyways?
no, they did it anyway. And so I called our I called our physician and I said, look, you're our doctor. You need to go down there. You need to tell them this is my patient. This is, I treat this family and he's not going anywhere, and let him be there. He just needs a little bit of oxygen. And he's like, I can't help you. And he hung up on me. I can't even describe that feeling of the doctor that we doctored with for many years and that delivered our two babies and that sat with us through a miscarriage did that. And I fought really hard to keep him there. I mean, and but they sent him to Oklahoma, and that's when the real nightmare began. That's when yeah, the nightmare really began.
Yeah. So tell us about that. So he gets to Oklahoma, and he was isolated obviously before, but now how far away were you? That if
Four,
you, I mean,
four,
you first of all you
four,
couldn't see him, but
yeah, 4 to 4.5 hours. I'm not quite sure how far Tulsa is actually from where we live, but it's 4 hours for sure. And I
okay,
did call, ask. I told them numerous times that we had tested on November 1st. This was already November 10th. Like, we're past that time. We both had it. Like, I'm coming, and they're like, no, you're not coming. We're not going to let you in. You're not going to be with him. You might as well stay where you're at. And at this time he's still able to text, and he's telling me, at first he's like, it's good, I'm okay. um, and then it kind of got to where, um, I don't know what's going on. They told me my lungs are clear. I feel like I can breathe just fine. Like, I don't know what, I don't, the text messages just were, I mean, they weren't good. Because he was like, he kept saying, I don't feel bad. I don't know why they want to keep me. But then I think he also was very, very worried about me because he knew I was still at home. Our daughter actually had to stay home from school to take care of me because I still was not able to do anything on my own. And so I think that he wasn't sharing a whole lot with me because he didn't want to worry me.
yeah,
But I know that probably 2 or 3 days in of him being there, and I kept like calling and asking the nurses, like, what are his vital signs? Like, what are you doing? And all they would say is, he's fine. You need to quit calling. He's fine. You need to quit calling. He's fine. You need to quit calling. 2 or 3 days of him being there, I texted him, like, of course, all the time. And I'm like, hey, baby, thinking about you, love you. And he goes, it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. And he's like, I'm really hungry. And I'm like, well, what'd you have for breakfast? He goes, they've never brought me breakfast. He goes, I don't
Mm,
have anything. And so I said, well, let me get a hold of them and find out what's going on. I got a hold of them and they're like, oh, well, we just gave him some morphine. And I'm like, why did you give him morphine? Like, he's not in pain. He's hungry. He wants some breakfast. Well, he was getting agitated. I'm like, morphine is a painkiller. He's not in pain. He's not agitated. He would like some food. Why can't you just take him some breakfast? And they hung up, like, you need to quit calling, and they hang up.
yeah.
And it just, the text messages kept getting, I don't, like I said, I think that he was very protective of me. So I don't want to say that his text messages were like horrible, but I could tell like he was stressing, and we were getting like, he told me things were not good, and I would call him. They're like, oh no, his vitals are good. Everything's good. I don't know why he's telling you that, you know? Um, and then a couple times, different times, he told me, he's like, hey, he goes, I was just laying here and I just want you to know that I just saw Jesus. He told me that twice, 2 different times, that he saw Jesus. And I said, yeah, baby, he's like watching over you. He's keeping you safe. He's going to bring you home. But he said it's so calming, like that. It was so calming to him to see Jesus. And, but every time I would call, and try to talk to somebody, and the doctor would be like, his vitals are fine. We're doing everything we can. I have other people I need to take care of. I don't have time to talk to you. And would literally hang up on me. They would not answer my questions. The only thing I knew for sure that they were giving him was morphine. I did not know of anything else they were doing, because if I asked, they would not answer me. I would say, so what else are you doing for him? What else are you doing for him? And they would be like, we're taking care of him. We're saving his life, and then they would say, you need to quit calling. You need to quit calling. And um, then on a Monday night, I'll never forget the days. I don't remember the exact date, but Monday night, he texted me and he's like, things are not okay. I love you very much, and God's got this. And that was his last text message to me. The next morning, I get a call and they told me that they had vented him. And I'm like, y'all did not have permission. He told you. He told you numerous times you were not to vent him. I told you numerous times you were not to vent him. And they said, we're saving his life. And I asked the doctor, I said, can you please try ivermectin? Like, what's it going to hurt? Like, can you just try it? Like, is it going to hurt anything? This doctor chuckled and told me that my husband was not a horse, and hung up.
That he was not a horse.
That he was not a horse, and hung up. I had another nurse tell me I needed to quit calling, that I was looking for a miracle that wasn't going to happen. Um, I did have a nurse, and I'll never forget his name. His name is Jimmy. He actually, when I called, he was not John's nurse that day, but he shared with me, he's like, Mrs. Springer, he goes, I actually was taking care of your husband before he went on the vent. And he goes, I had a couple days off. He goes, I figured I would come back and your husband would have been dismissed and on his way home, because he was doing amazing. He
Mm-hmm.
goes, I come back on a vent. He goes, I was so shocked. He goes, but I just want you to know, I absolutely loved taking care of your husband. He was one of the nicest men to visit with. And I'm just shocked that I came back to that. He goes, because I really thought I would come back and he was going to be home. That's the only nice nurse I talked to. His name is Jimmy. That the others were all hateful and rude. Um, so again, I continued to call and check on him, continued to get hung up on, continued to get told I need to quit calling. I kept telling them I was coming. They kept telling me they would not allow me in. And on December 2nd, they called me in the afternoon. The doctor did. And she's like, I will try to keep him alive till you get here. And hung up. I got a hold of my sister-in-law. She came over. We loaded up. We loaded up. We got there about 8 o'clock that night and had to, of course, go through the ER to get to the IC unit. That ER was empty except for one person sitting in a chair. The receptionist was filing her fingernails behind the desk. Nobody was masked. That was one of the emptiest hospitals for Tulsa, Oklahoma. An ER in Tulsa, Oklahoma, completely empty. Pointed towards down the hallway to where ICU was. No, we saw no nurses, no doctors in the hallways. We saw no patients, nothing. There was a dead hospital. We got to ICU, absolutely was able to walk through the door, still could not find a doctor, we were so lost. We finally came across a doctor. He's like, can I help you? Like, not, what are you guys doing here? Nothing. It's, can I help you guys? And we're like, my sister-in-law is like, we're looking for her husband, John Springer, my brother. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm taking care of him. He's this way. The condition that my husband was in was undescribable. I really do not know how I did not go completely down. They had to get me a chair. It was horrible. And then, like I said, you saw nobody. You absolutely saw nobody. And I was able to be blessed to be with him 3.5 hours before his heart stopped. I'm very thankful for that because I know so many did not get that opportunity. And yeah, it's just, they had promised me. John was very big on making sure he took care of his teeth. And I kept asking them, like, are you guys doing oral care on him? Like, are you shaving him? Like, oh yes, all that's being done. Oh my Lord, they had not done any oral care on him. His lips were so swollen and dry and cracked. And he had so much gunk and stuff on his teeth and built up and black. I mean, it's gross. His cheeks looked like raw meat. He had a big bed sore on his one ear.
Which is neglect.
They had not shaved him. I was horrible. But I didn't care. I just kissed on him and talked to him and held him and just talked and held on for as long as I possibly could. And just told him, at first I was like, show them how strong you are. Show them that they can't win this. And then I finally had to come to terms that he wasn't going to come out of that. And so I told him that I loved him and I was so proud of him. And that I knew that I had to let him go and fly with the angels. And I told him that I loved him, that I would carry his love forever, and that I would make sure that the kids were okay, and that our youngest baby, would still continue to rodeo in his memory and rodeo for him. And I had to let him go. And I think that he needed to hear that. I think that he needed to know that it was okay. That I promised him I would carry his heartbeat in my heart forever. And I will do that. I will be his warrior. I will fight for him. I will fight for his story. I will be his voice. And I will make him proud, and I will finish this fight that he knew so much about. I will do that for him, and I will do it for so many others, but I will do it for him.
And you really have been a strong advocate for change both in your state and Oklahoma as well, in terms of trying to get these laws changed, and you did your interview on CHD, right? It was CHD TV or CHD, the bus.
And then I've done with, I think the Defender. I can't.
Defender, yep, the Defender,
And then
Vindog, Mick.
I,
You've been on a lot of them.
I did. Uh, what's the nurses one?
Nurses Out
I did.
Loud,
Yeah. No. I
American
can't remember
Frontline Nurses.
the frontline nurses. Yeah.
Yeah, because he got remdesivir, and some of the drugs he got were um, antibiotics, anxiety meds, Ativan, blood thinners, blood pressure medications, dexamethasone, dexametamidine. I know that one's a bad one. Fentanyl, Lasix, morphine, midazolam. This is a lot. Grace Shera's case was based on a lot of these painkillers, paralytics, Precedex, propofol, the Michael Jackson drug, remdesivir, sedatives, vitamin C. Denied everything that was safe and effective, like hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin. And the fact that she told you that he was that your husband was not a horse is just, in 2021 there should have been no ignorance around ivermectin. I can see people being bought into it in 2020, after being told, but then you'd think by that time you saw hundreds of thousands of people being immediately cured with, or
I asked. I asked that doctor how many patients she had vented, and she's like, "Well, I've been doing this since it all started." And I'm like, "Okay, how many patients have you vented?" And she's like, "Well, I've been doing this." I'm like, "I'm aware. How many
yeah,
patients have you done this to?" And she goes, "Well, I vented over 100." And I'm like, "Well, how many have come off those vents?" She goes, "Maybe 10." And I told her straight up on the phone, I said, "You need to find a different profession." And she hung up on me, which
yeah,
understandable. Like I said something that wasn't nice either, but I'm sorry. If that's your tally record, there's something wrong.
yeah, yeah. You need to do something that's working. Call one of the doctors, one of the many doctors out there that have 100% success
And I
rate treating
I,
hundreds and thousands.
I did request um, another doctor. I did the, you have to go through like the procedure of doing that, and I did that procedure. Like I requested another doctor. They informed me that they didn't have any other doctors. I requested to get him transferred back to the states, or back to Kansas. Sorry. They told me that they tried and that it wouldn't go through. Like they couldn't get it to go through. Um, yeah. So just a whole lot. And um,
And at one
then
point they broke. At one point they broke
oh,
his
yes,
nose, right?
yes, yes, yes. So after and I did, I knew at some point before he died, probably a couple days before he before I got down there, I just had broke up. Well, in the short amount of time that I did sleep, I thought, you know what? And I told our kids this. I'm like, if he dies, I will get his medical records and I will prove that they killed him. I will prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. I will prove it. So I got his medical records. I actually have a friend here in Kansas that is a nurse, that I work with actually today. And anyway, she read his medical records, and she asked me first if he, um, which she already kind of knew this because she's known us for many, she's known our family for a long time. But she's like, Peggy, like, was he like a heavy drinker? Was he an alcoholic? And I'm like, no. She goes, he had severe liver damage. along with extremely severe kidney damage, and which he did get put on dialysis. And then she said, or asked me, she goes, was he in an altercation before he went into the hospital? I'm like, no. I said, what do you mean an altercation? She goes, well, he had a broken nose. And that's when and it was in his medical records that his nose was broke, but nobody at that hospital called and said, oh, your husband has broken nose. I did not know anything about that. And um, so, yeah, but his nose, at some point, his nose got broke. I don't know how. I will never know how. But it makes me sick to my stomach that they did that to him. Um, he was
Yeah.
healthy. He had no health issues. He was a truck driver. He had to get a DOT physical once a year. And he had just had his DOT physical in April of 2021. Passed with flying colors. No health issues whatsoever. None. The man took vitamins. He was a big vitamin person. Very much drank water like it was going out of style. Took very good care of himself. Um, and had no underlying health issues. Was not overweight. Was not nothing. Um, did not even have symptoms of COVID. None. Like we go to the hospital and I come home and he doesn't. And people like I can see where people struggle wrapping their head around that. They're like, well, that doesn't make sense. Like, why would they keep a perfectly healthy man and send somebody home that couldn't breathe? I would like to know that too, because that's a question that will probably never get answered. I will never have an answer to that, but they did. And
Yes. I hear that a
it's
lot.
it's
I,
a bad deal. But yeah, they
so
did.
yeah, and it was the hospital in Oklahoma that started the remdesivir and all the
Yes,
toxic drugs,
yeah,
right? Yeah.
the day that he arrived at Tulsa, OSU, um, they started the remdesivir, the morphine, the remdesivir, and the BiPAP on him.
So when so
And his
after
anytime I ask like where his oxygen levels were, it was always 90-91, 90-91.
in the 90s, yeah, which
Yeah, and I would
yeah,
say, well, why oxygen if it's well he's struggling breathing, and then of course they would, you need to quit calling, you're bothering us.
uh,
And you know
so
what I think eats on me too is the fact that every time, I mean, John, I loved him. He was a strong man. But when it came to going to doctors, he hated going to the doctors alone. He'd always say, even for his DOT physical, hey, I have a doctor's appointment. Can you go with me? And I'll be like, oh my Lord, you're a grown man, blah, 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 all that. And he's like, yeah, but you have a mouth on you and you know how, the right questions to ask and you could be pushy. He goes, I just like it when you're there because you know what to ask. And I always went with him. I always went to the doctors with him. Take some time off work. I'd go to the doctors with him. Um, and the one time that my husband needed me to be there, I absolutely could not get to him. That feeling of fighting through a phone call and getting hung up on, that feeling of not being able to be there and actually see and look at things and read things and know exactly what they were doing, having that helpless feeling it's undescribable. And I understand, like, I know I didn't kill him. I know I didn't have any control over that. But the guilt of not being able to save him because I wasn't there, I will never be able to handle very well.
yeah, I know you'd struggle with it, and it's come. This is the fourth. It's coming up on 4 years.
Yeah.
Um, is there before we talk about some of the impacts it's had on your life, is there anything else that you want people to know about these hospitals, particularly the hospital that John was in?
Don't go to him. If you can find an alternative method of being treated for something, please, please, please go that route. I use my nurse friend. She is a nurse practitioner, so she is able to do prescriptions. She's able to get me the things I need. Um, I will not set foot in a hospital. I will not go to a doctor. Um, and I know that not all doctors are bad. There are good doctors out there. I know them. I
Hmm.
know, I will reach out to them if I need to, but I will not set foot. Even if you think you can trust your doctor, you better throw some questions out there to make sure, um,
Yeah.
just do your research, understand what you're walking into, and do not ever, if you go to the hospital with a family member, do not leave their side. Do not leave their side. And especially if minors or your children or whatever, grandchildren, but, don't just be ready. Make sure that you've got your arsenal in your back pocket because you're going to probably have to pull that out. Um, and
And
just be prepared.
and you've had an incredible amount of impacts over the course of the 4 years. Like you still had to be a mom,
Still
right?
had to be a yeah. Still had to be a mom. Yeah.
Jordan wasn't even done with high school.
Done. Nope. She wasn't. She's really,
Yeah,
really. She is.
you had, and I know you had to do a lot of finagling to get her to stay and remain doing the rodeos. And
A lot of finagling, a lot of tears, a lot of prayers. Um, a lot of people, he died December 2nd. Um, had his funeral 2 weeks later. Had a rodeo a week later, and we talked about it. We talked about it very, very seriously. Do we want to go do this rodeo? Are we ready to go do this rodeo? Um, she actually, while he was in the hospital, had a rodeo while he was in the hospital. I was not able to go with her to that rodeo. She actually had to take herself, um, 16 years old, taking herself to her very own rodeo. Um, she actually ended up coming off her horse that night and getting a concussion. I don't think she told him that, but anyway, but we seriously had that discussion. Do we want to go do this? Because we just had his funeral. We just did his funeral, and we both decided that that's what he would want. Um, that was his thing. His kids were his life, and she was our baby. She was the last one at home, and we were going to soak up what we had left with her before she flew the nest and before we were just on our own. And so rodeo was very, very, very important to him, and very important to make sure that she kept doing that. And
yeah,
we went to that rodeo, and it was very hard, but we did it. And yeah, she uh, she went back to homeschooling. She had been homeschooled, and then she decided that year that he died that she wanted to try to get back into public school. But she did not return to public school after his death. She went back to homeschool. Um, very much um, made him very much a part of her graduation. So yeah, she,
do you think it was harder to do you think it was harder to pick up the pieces? Because I know, I mean, nobody's got their pieces picked up, but um, because of the fact of the way that he died and
yeah,
the trauma and the
and for my youngest, the guilt, which we've talked about this a lot. So she had to take him to the hospital that night. They get out of the pickup. They go in. Well, they go up to the door. They won't let her come in. He turns around. He gives her a hug. Tells her that he loves her. and that everything's going to be okay. So she came to me and she's like, I feel really bad. And I'm like, why do you feel bad? And she goes, because I took him and I got that last hug and that should have belonged to you. And I'm like,
Oh,
no, God gave you that hug and that's yours. And that's the way that your dad would want it, and it's okay. And so on my way up to her graduation, because she did Manhattan Virtual, and Manhattan Virtual does do a graduation with their kiddos. And the wonderful thing about the Manhattan Virtual College or Manhattan Virtual is that a lot of her rodeo friends were also in that same homeschool group. That's why we chose Manhattan Virtual. So she was able to like graduate with a bunch of her rodeo friends. But on my way to Manhattan, because that's where the graduation was, I'm driving up there and I don't know, like it just clicked. So Jordan, of course, was our last baby and our only C-section baby, and so and it was an emergency C-section. So I was out of it when I didn't even know that we had had a girl. I didn't know what we had. I was out. So when she was born, I wasn't the first one that got to hold her. John was. He got that first hug, and so I always told. So when I got there, we were talking, and I'm like, I was thinking about this coming up this afternoon, and it dawned on me that you got your first hug was from your dad, and your last hug you got from your dad, and there's a reason. There's a reason you got that first hug, and there's a reason you got that last hug, and you
yeah.
hang on to those hugs. But I took a picture of her at the graduation. I don't know. I don't know if it's in these pictures. Probably not. But anyway, it's when when they have the when they have the graduates turn around and face their parents in the crowd, and
Oh,
they do the announcement or whatever, and then the kiddos throw their hats in the air. She was only a few chairs ahead of me and in the auditorium, um, and so I was able to like. She was in the last row because our last name starts with an S, and so we're going to be in the last. But she was in that row, just a couple seats ahead of me, and she turned around, and all I see is this young lady holding in all of her emotions and trying not to lose herself in that moment, wanting to turn around and see her dad standing in that crowd of people, and seeing her fight hard to hold back those tears. And the minute that they announced the 2023 graduation class and they threw their hats up and they caught them, she could not get across those seats fast enough and she collapsed in my arms. But I took a picture of her doing in that moment of catching that on her. And that very day, I sent that picture to Senator Stephan here in Kansas, who I met with a couple right after John died, and who was helping me get some things, trying to get some things done. And I sent him that picture, and I said, "This is why we need to fight. This is why we need to change things, because nobody should have to watch their child graduate without their parent, without their daddy. Nobody should see the pain on their child's face like I am seeing on my daughter's face." And that's when he put together to present a bill to Kansas for the John Springer Bill of Rights. And that's when we started working on that.
mm-hmm. Yeah. Good job on all that too. I mean, you've been a fighter. I always say the I think Janie calls them the never alone widows, but the widow warriors, they fight through the tears, right?
Yeah.
The fight has to be had. Um, I do have that hug that I'm going to send you though,
Yeah. I just,
so that
Love that. Yeah.
And then I have one for Jordan.
That's her eighth grade, eighth grade dance there.
Yeah.
And then that's our youngest son's, just right after his graduation, after he had taken his cap and gown off. And then that's
Jill.
our daughter, her junior prom. And then our oldest son at his high school graduation.
And I hope that that will give them a little bit of comfort
Yeah,
every time.
I haven't sent the oldest two those videos yet. I sent Jordan was actually on her way home from a barrel race, and I warned her. I'm like, I'm sending you something. I'm just warning you. And I made sure that Tanner was sitting next to her because I knew that it was going to have an impact. And she actually sent me a picture of her face with tears rolling down it. And she's like, I absolutely felt that hug. I absolutely felt that. And I'm just crying. And I sent it to our youngest son, who is the spitting image of John, his mini me through and through. And he's like, Mom, that meant so much to me. That means so much to me. And so I know that the other two will really appreciate getting those two. And so I thank you for that. Um,
Ellie,
you know,
Ellie Hayes Ellie Hayes makes those, and I love every single time I see somebody get one of those. She made one for me too. It and you're right. You can feel the hug.
that yeah, forgot what I was going to say. Oh, I try to tell people, I stress it all the time. If you have somebody to hug, hug them because you are not promised those hugs tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And I stress that to people all the time. You know, I remember it wasn't too long after John died, and struggling to, I was just struggling, and I had to run to the grocery store. I don't even remember for what because I don't think I've done any cooking since then. But and I remember like walking in and the anxiety that comes from having to walk through a grocery store that you used to walk through with your husband and he's not there and trying to navigate how do you shop? How do you shop? How do you do this? But seeing people with somebody else or seeing, couples. And I even saw like one couple arguing and I wanted to walk over to them. I didn't because they probably would have called the loony bin on me because you're not I wasn't rational. Like I don't, I just wasn't rational at that time in my life. Sometimes I'm still not rational. So it probably would not have ended well for me if I had walked over there. But I wanted to walk over there and just say, quit because you're not promised tomorrow. So quit fighting over whatever you're fighting over
Yeah.
about, But I can remember there were many times that I would actually walk into the store and I would turn around, like I would have the cart, and it's almost like you're there, but you're not there. And just like your cart's still empty and you're just going up and down the aisles and you're not really seeing anybody, you're not really focused, you just start hearing noises. And I can remember more times than not walking out of that store without anything, like just having to leave that cart. And there were
Yeah.
times that groceries in it and I just had to walk out. I remember the first time I would go through a drive-through and grab food for Jordan and I. We just didn't cook, and but I thought, well, the drive-through was like backed up. I think is why I decided to go in. I thought, oh, it's going to be faster if I go in. And I'm standing behind this little old man. He's got a cane. He's up at the little counter ordering his food and paying for it. And he's got this little cane, and he's like I would say probably upper 80s, maybe. And all I could think about was, oh, that poor little man. It's so sad that he has to eat alone. Like he doesn't. And then it clicked. Oh, but you're that poor little man too. You don't have anybody to eat with. I turned around and walked out. I didn't even order. Um, it's just things like that. Just hits you, hit you hard. And, um,
It's
you
ambush
know,
grief, right? The ambush
it
grief.
yeah. Um, I left work one day. I don't remember why I left. I don't remember what happened. I had, my job was, I had a great job. It wasn't anything that happened at work. I don't know. I just like I call them crazy moments, I guess now. Back then, I don't know what I called it, but now I look back at it and it was a crazy moment. And I remember leaving. I don't even know if I told anybody I was leaving, and I had a really big responsibility at that job, but I left and I just started driving, and I just remember I just wanted to end it. Like the thought of wanting to just drive over to the other side of the road and let a semi smack me, like that's where I was at that day. And um, I don't know. I don't know what made me finally pull. I don't know what made me pull over, or I don't know exactly like the order of events. If my sister-in-law had reached out to me and I pulled over, or if I had pulled over and I don't remember exactly. I just remember my sister-in-law texting me and saying, "Hey, just checking on you.
Hmm.
How are you?" And my response back was, I'm not okay." And she's like, "Okay, do you want to talk?" And I can go back like and look at the text messages. Well, I mean, not now, I can't, because I'm sure they're probably buried somewhere, but later, early, closer to that time, going back and looking, and I think I was like, I don't I don't know where I'm at. And she's like, "Aren't you at work?" And I'm like, "No, I don't know where I'm at." And she tried to call and I didn't answer. And she texted me. She's like, I'm getting hold of somebody that I know. They're going to call you." And she was getting hold of a grief counselor. And this strange number tried to call, and I didn't answer it. Like I was sitting somewhere, and I remember like beating on the steering wheel and just screaming, and just remember the tears. I don't and not knowing where I was at. Like I don't know where I was at that
Hmm.
moment. And she's she's still trying to like call me. And then a therapist friend of mine who my sister-in-law did not know, just reached out, like randomly reached out, texted me and said, "Hey, I've been thinking about you." Um, and just was like wondering, if you wondering how you're doing, what can I do to help? And I remember texting back and saying, I don't know where I'm at. I don't know where I'm at." And she's like, "What do you mean you don't know where you're at?" Like, I'm like, "I don't know. I took off from work and I don't know where I'm at." And she's like, "Okay." Like, she goes, I need you to like just calm down, and I need you to focus and figure out where you're at." And so finally, like, she was able to like talk me into calming down and like breathing and all that. And I was finally able to figure out that I was 2 hours away from home,
Oh,
and
wow.
sitting in a parking lot in Kingman, Kansas. Um, and I don't know how the cops didn't get called, because who's going to sit in a parking lot screaming and beating a steering wheel? Like, how's that not going to get somebody's attention? But apparently not. But anyway, she's like, "Listen," when I finally, like, I said, "Oh my God, I'm in Kingman." And you know what makes me wonder, like, why I ended up in Kingman is because Jordan and we rodeoed a lot in Kingman. Like, Kingman was our rodeo town. So
Mm.
I'm kind of wondering if that was why, but I don't know. So she goes, "I want you back home and I want you to come in and see me." And that's kind of when I started like the therapy and stuff, that I've been doing for 3.5 years. But so you have those crazy moments, driving down the highway and not remembering how to get home. That actually happened to me. Lived in the same house You know, I couldn't remember how to get home. Like,
But yeah, that trauma, that 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 is that's the impacts of it. So what take take us just through, in wrapping up here, what would you two I have two questions in wrapping up, okay, for you. So because it has been 4 years, what advice would you get? Because people are, this is still happening, right? We had somebody on the Monday meeting who buried her husband on Sunday from the protocols. Somebody who's just starting in this journey and starting in this, trying to figure everything out, because at some point you were like, they killed my husband. So what advice, do you have any advice or for a somebody who is just going down this journey? That's the first question.
uh, you know, everybody's journey is so individual. I mean, there's so many, the deaths, the killings are the same, but the grief journey is so individual. And I guess if you have somebody to reach out to even just cry, not even talk, do that. Like, it's really hard. It's really hard not to isolate yourself. It's really easy, I guess, to isolate yourself. It's really
Yeah.
easy to shut yourself off from the world. And um, so hanging on to God for one thing, like, do not let go of God. And I'm sure as many people that have walked this, the anger that you have towards God, because the prayers that came down to save our loved ones, to save John, to heal him, whatever. I was mad at God for a very long time. And
Yeah.
I had to realize, because I know that John did not want me mad at God. I know that John was a very faith loving, God loving, faith loving man. I had to come to the terms that God did save him. God did answer our prayers, just not the way that we wanted them answered. And he did save John. He did take him home. It just wasn't to our home. It wasn't to me.
That's
And, but, talk about them, share with them. Don't rush yourself in making decisions about things. As far as like, people are so good about coming in with advice about, well, maybe you should do this or maybe you should do that. You do what you feel you need to do for you.
yeah.
Don't do what you need to do for others. Even the smallest, silliest thing to some, it may not be small or silly to you, and that's okay. That's okay, because this is your journey. Nobody else is to tell you how to walk it. Nobody else is to tell you how to handle it. Nobody else is to tell you how to do it. Um, you know, um, it's not self-pity. It's not feeling sorry for yourself. It's not that. It's not attention seeking. It's not um, selfish. It's your journey, and you get through it the way that you need to get through it, and that's okay. That's okay.
Yeah. And I hope people as well, if they have a story to tell about the protocols, or even the COVID shots with the protocols, people have a harder time talking about the protocols because they feel like the world's going to view them as crazy. But we know thousands of people in C19 widows and widowers who want justice that have this. I mean, there thousands and thousands of us are not crazy, right? So I would encourage
Oh,
people to tell their stories.
right. And absolutely. And, you do get told you're crazy. I got told by a family member that I needed to probably commit myself to a mental hospital. Um, and, as far as like justice, yes, absolutely. We want justice, but also realizing that that justice may look different than what we pictured in our minds, because the one thing that I realize now, I didn't realize back then, is I was so hell bent on getting justice that I was allowing it to destroy me, which I was already destroyed. But I
Yeah.
was allowing it to destroy me more. But it was destroying my kids, because they lost their dad. They lost their dad, but they were losing me in that battle. And I go back and I think about that, and I think kind of the turning point for me in realizing that I had to redirect my focus and redirect my mindset on what is justice going to look like for John is when the Bill of Rights got squashed at the Capitol, and I was driving home, 3-hour trip home, and crying and mad, and hating the world, hating everybody in the world.
I remember that day.
Yeah. Um, and realizing that I had to let go of my revenge mindset, because it was destroying me. It was destroying my kids. And understanding that, okay, I'm probably never going to be able to take that hospital down. I'm probably never going to be able to take that doctor down. I will probably never see justice in a courtroom. So, what can I do differently to make sure that people know about this hospital, that they know about this, and fighting the battle in a different way? Because it was, like I said, it was destroying me. And so that's when it's like, you know what? You're going to just share. You're going to talk about it. You're going to share it. You're going to be his voice, and you're going to hand the hospital and the doctor over to God, because God's going to be the one that's going to bring that justice. And I had to accept that. And I think that was kind of what helped in the step of healing. Not that I'm completely healed. Like, I don't think I will ever be completely healed from this. Um, and he didn't die from a heart attack. He didn't die from cancer. He didn't die from a car crash. He didn't die from a stroke. He didn't, he was murdered by people that we should have trusted. And understanding that that the justice that I expected is going to have to be different than that. Like, so letting go of that that as hard as it was, I needed to let go of that to take that step forward. Um, and I feel like now that it's not so much about revenge, it's more about sharing his story, being his voice, sharing his life, sharing what was taken from me and the kids, has a bigger impact than on wanting to get revenge.
Yeah. So, in wrapping up, what what's one or two of your favorite memories about John?
Um, oh, let's see. There's just so many. Probably, I think just having those car rides with him is one of my biggest memories. Like, he was a stinker, and we would take these car rides on Sundays if we weren't at a rodeo. We'd get all of our stuff done, and we'd go get a Sonic drink, and we'd hit the blacktop roads. We'd either hopefully be listening to music. Most of the time it was podcast. But anyway, we'd just be talking, and we just talk and talk, and we talk about everything and anything. And we don't, hold hands, just be driving down those blacktop roads. He would try to convince me that we were still young enough to park. I would try to convince him that that wasn't happening. But that's probably one of my best memories. Probably meeting him for the very first time. We had a friend that had given my phone number to him. I didn't know John, had never met him in my life, did not know him at all. He lived 4 hours away from where I lived, but we had a mutual friend. And this mutual friend had given John my phone number, and that was back before cell phones, back before caller ID, back before your phone was still on the wall. And he had told me, I gave this guy your phone number, and I'm like, hey, like, I'm trying to raise these babies, I'm trying to work, like, I ain't got no time for no man. And I remember, like, my phone rang one night, and of course I answered, because caller ID, so you don't know who's calling you. And I answered the phone, and he's like, is Peggy there? And I'm like, well, this is Peggy. He goes, oh, well, my name's John. And it had been like a couple months down the road since my friend had told me that. So John didn't even like click in my head. And I'm like, oh, do I know you? He's like,
Mhm.
no, our friend. And I'm like, oh yeah, you're the one he shared my phone number with. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, I didn't appreciate that, but it is. He goes, well, can we? I'm like, well, sure. Like, I'll talk. We talked for about an hour. And he's like, is it okay if I call back in a couple of nights? I'm like, well, I guess you can do what you want. Like, whatever. Like, okay. Like, I wasn't holding my breath. Um, and sure
And
enough,
there
he
he
did.
was, the love of your life.
Well, what's really funny is, like with memories, there's just some memories. It's the smallest thing, the smallest detail you don't forget. This was a Tuesday night. He called me about 8:30, 9 o'clock that night, because I had told him, like, well, I don't care that you call back, but kind of make it after bedtime, because that way I'm not like screaming at children, because that's not pretty, and I don't want to be screaming into the phone. And he just chuckled, and he's like, I can do that. He called about 8:30, 9 o'clock that night, and that was back when you got charged for those dang long distance phone calls.
Yeah.
All bail was not cheap. And we were on the phone till 3 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And we both knew, sight unseen, that by the end of that phone call, we were going to be together forever. He came down on Saturday. That Saturday, he brought a dozen roses. We went out that night, and we were never separated. From that night on, we were never separated.
Oh,
And
that's a sweet.
uh, a month later, we were married. Yeah. So, and a lot of people did not know that. That's not a lot. We didn't really share that detail with a lot of people. I did not share that with my kids, because you try to tell your children, you can't fall in love. You got to get to
Yeah.
know them. Like, there's no such thing as love at first sight. Yes, there is. 31 years of married to my best friend. Absolutely. And I remember our first dance. Like, we went out and dancing that for that date, and we danced to the Keith Whitley song. Uh, can't even think of the name of it now. Just went right out of my head, and I hate that. When You Say Nothing at All, we
Yeah.
danced. We danced to Alabama. A lot of Alabama songs. And so every time I hear those songs, those are memories in my mind. And he asked me on Valentine's Day to marry him. He showed up. He came home. He had moved in to my house, even though he's 4 hours away. We made it work. I don't know how, but we did. He showed up, and he would park his truck. My house was next to a field. So he would park on the highway. The highway was right there, and then there was this field, and then my house. He would park in the parking lot of this business, and he would walk across the field to my house. And I knew, like, he had called from a payphone to let me know how far out he was. And so I knew about kind of when he would arrive, and I was watching for him. And he came across that field, and I ran, not really ran, but like walked to meet him. And he pulled out another dozen roses and an engagement ring, and asked me to marry him in the
Oh,
middle of, yeah.
That's very sweet.
Yeah. And John was
Oh,
not around. I'm pretty sure that's probably the only two times I got flowers, but that's
but
okay.
that's because they mattered. They
They
totally
matter.
mattered.
You know, he
Well,
was a silly guy. He was not. We were not romantic people. We didn't have to buy each other anything to prove to each other that we loved each other. Um, I remember when I started working at the school, and it was Valentine's again, and um, we hadn't had. I think I was pregnant with our youngest son. But anyway, all these teachers and staff were getting all these Valentine flowers from their people, I'm not a jealous person, but I just feel a little left out. Just a little left out. John's sister owned a flower shop there in town, and so I called him, and I'm like, "Hey, feeling a little left out. I know we don't do this. I get it. Valentine's is not really. I mean, even though he had asked me to marry him on Valentine's Day, we weren't big Valentine's people. I guess whatever, you know." I said, "But I'm feeling a little left out here. So, if you could just like send me even one flower, it'd be really appreciated." And he said, "Well, you can call Lori, tell her to put some flowers together, put my name on it, and have them delivered."
oh,
So
that's so
that's what
sweet.
I called my own flower order in.
Well, Peggy, thank you for sharing all of this and for the courage to always be speaking about what happened. I want to really encourage people that if they have a story, go to betrayalprojectusa.org, put your story in, tell your story everywhere that you can tell it everywhere. The world needs to hear it. It's still happening. And even if it wasn't happening, we cannot let them brush these crimes against humanity under the rug. And yeah, and I very much appreciate every single person that's willing to tell their story. So
I will repeat it, repeat it, repeat it. I don't care if people get tired of hearing it. I will repeat it
yeah,
because people need to know. People need to know.
yeah, homicide is homicide, and
Absolutely.
we'll see some level of accountability. I don't know what that looks like, but we will see accountability.
Absolutely.
So thank you.
Yeah.